Hello everyone, Waffles 2 again, and here I am playing some more Kerbal Space Program. I know, surprise, surprise. Honestly, between this game and Minecraft, it's a wonder I can get anything done at all these days. My apologies to everyone waiting for the next part of a Commander's Choice or a New Life to come out, but I'm working on it. I've actually got quite a bit done on the next part for Commander's Choice. I'm hoping to get that up by next week. But anyway, here's my current obsession in game, and that is you know single stage to orbit space planes. I'm interested in this kind of vessel for carrying and launching small payloads like satellites into orbit rather than relying on rockets. I think these can do them far more efficiently. And honestly, the challenge in operating one of these is worth it in and of itself to be successful with it anyway. But it looks like Jeb's getting bored here, so why don't we get our pre-flight out of the way and get this bird in the air. Now I've equipped this plane with two pairs of intakes to power the engines with, and that's because as you climb, the air is going to thin out, and we'll want to open that second. We'll need more intakes to keep the engines running. But down low where the air is thick, they just add extra drag, so we're going to close one pair of intakes to keep air out of them, and that'll help us on drag. Let's see, the computer assist is turned on, precision control is on. Let's throttle up the turbo fans, let them spool up, and get this bird going down the runway. Now I was pretty careful with the center of gravity and the position of the rear landing gear, so it's going to take very, very little back pressure on the stick to get the nose to kick up. Let's see, we're running on a runway, so 2, and up we go. In fact, I overdid it a little bit there and nearly stalled the aircraft on launch. It would have been an inglorious start to our ascent. So at this point, what we're going to want to do is put the plane pretty much on its tail and climb very aggressively to about 10 kilometers of altitude. That's where the air starts to thin out enough that we can actually get some good speed going without wasting a lot of energy fighting with the thick atmosphere of Kerbal. This may or may not be the most efficient flight profile out there, but it works for me, and I've kind of developed this launch profile based on a lot of trial and error, a lot of experience with how the plane deals at different altitudes, and some of my experience putting rockets into orbit as well. When we hit 10 kilometers, we're going to want to start to level out and start to build some speed up. We're going to want to hit about 500 meters per second by the time we hit 15 kilometers of altitude. And at that point, we're going to really level our climb out and really start accelerating aggressively through to 20 kilometers. And we're looking to hit between 1 and 1.2 kilometers per second by the time we hit 20 kilometers of altitude. There's a close-up of the Kethane scanning probe that we're going to try to send to the moon. This is actually kind of a maiden voyage for this scanning probe, so I certainly hope my back-of-the-envelope calculations are correct. I actually didn't spend a lot of time double-checking. I'm sure I did a fine job. What could possibly go wrong? Alright, here we are at 10 kilometers. We're going to slowly bring the nose down, and you're going to see our speed start to rapidly increase through here. We're going to want to keep an eye on our intake air level as well in the upper right. And when that hits between 0.14 and 0.16, we're going to want to open the second set of intakes to keep the engines running just a little bit longer in that thinner air. We want to rely on those jet engines as much as we can for this launch. They are by far way more fuel efficient than the most efficient efficient rocket motor in the game. Possibly not including the ion drive, which I don't have a lot of experience with. But even in the rarefied air where the jets are at a disadvantage, they're still between 3 and 4 times as fuel efficient as the Aerospike rocket engine that we've got equipped on this plane. And there we've opened the second set of intakes, mostly so I can take my eyes off of that part of the screen. Because now we're going to level it up. Now our goal is to put the wings of the prograde marker on the artificial horizon right on the horizon, hold it there through this part of the ascent. You're going to see our speed continue to rapidly build, and we're going for between 1 and 1.2 kilometers per second by the time we hit 20 kilometers of altitude. Now what's happening here is normally at this speed we would be inducing a Mach effect from water vapor condensing out of the compressed air along the boundary layer. But because my computer sucks so hard, I've had to turn all the graphics off. And instead of the really impressive Mach and re-entry effects, we get this weird graphical anomaly instead. I'm seriously looking at throwing a couple more gigs of RAM into this computer, see if I can get some more life out of it, because it's kind of getting long in the tooth. It's about 6 years old now. And this game is a memory hog, believe you me. It's not gentle on the CPU pipeline either. That physics engine running it, which I understand is even way better than it was in the original few releases. Is a CPU hog to make. Well, even this spacecraft is built out of, the CPU's got to be tracking the physical interactions between about 60 different components of this plane, plus the flight dynamics, plus the engine behavior. So yeah, it's actually kind of impressive that this game runs at all. So I'm not going to complain. We're getting close to 20 kilometers. Now when we hit 20 kilometers, we're going to want to turn on the Aerospike rocket engine. And we're actually counterintuitively going to want to throttle back to between 2/3 and 1/2 throttle. And the reason for that is to reduce the strain on the turbofan engines and get them to run just a little while longer, so we can keep taking advantage of that fantastic fuel efficiency. But okay, here we come, 500 meters away. The Aerospike's an interesting engine. I'll talk about it in a minute. And go! Okay, we've lit the rocket engine, we've throttled back. Now the atmosphere is becoming a detriment to our flight. So we want to kick our plane out of it as quickly as possible. So we're going to climb aggressively again until we hit about 32 kilometers of altitude. And again, we're going to keep a sharp eye on that intake air. And when it gets down to about 0.06, we'll go ahead and shut off the turbofans and go and pedal to the metal on the rocket motor. The plane gets a little unstable at certain points of this second climb, so I tend to turn on the RCS system for just a little extra stability. The plane's got plenty of monoprop anyway. But you see, we are really starting to pick up speed as we get out of more and more out of the atmosphere, even though we are still in this steep climb. And at 32, here we are at 32. Now we're going to want to put our nose right on that prograde marker and just go for broke on our velocity. We're shooting for between 2.2 and 2.3 kilometers per second of orbital velocity. And at that point, we will cut the throttle entirely, kick over to the map view, and evaluate our ballistic trajectory and circularize our orbit. And that'll put us in a nice parking orbit from which we can make further decisions on our mission, how we're going to, how we're going to extend, contract, or whatever else we need to do, or just sit around and look at the pretty lights in the sky. But that aerospike engine, I kind of don't like them. They're extremely heavy. They weigh in at 1.5 tons of mass, and they only produce about 50 kilonewtons of thrust. The LV909 engine weighs half a ton, and it produces 50 kilotons of thrust. But where this is really has a huge advantage is its atmospheric efficiency. See, most of the more conventional rocket motors with the bell nozzle, they suffer very, very bad efficiency problems in atmosphere, whereas the aerospike doesn't. Its efficiency is pretty much the same from 1 atmosphere all the way up to vacuum. I think it fluctuates from 388 seconds up to 390 seconds of specific impulse. So that's what makes it very, very valuable and very useful for a space plane design, because you're burning in an atmosphere for a good chunk of your flight just to get it up to this point. So you might as well, and fuel is at a premium on these kinds of vehicles. So you want to get the most bang for your buck as you can. The atmosphere is getting extremely rarefied up here. We're just gonna coast up to the apoapse of our trajectory. That's the highest point above the surface, and then we're gonna fire and burn. And all we need, we've done a pretty good job here. All we need to circularize our orbit and put this vehicle in a parking orbit is an additional 160 meters per second of acceleration. So really, compared to the amount of fuel and energy we've already spent, just a tiny little bump will put this thing in a parking orbit. It'll take about 10 seconds to produce that kind of velocity. And cut. Here we are. We are in space in a perfectly stable and very, very well circularized orbit. And let's start planning our mission, which is actually to send that space probe that I've got strapped to the back of the Aurora. We're actually going to send that up to the moon. I think the probe should have enough energy on its own to get there, so we're going to preserve the fuel in the Aurora for its landing. Oh, I have really got to improve that release mechanism. That keeps happening. Every single launch, that probe is wound up banging into the side of the ship. Not hard enough to do any real damage, but the techs are starting to bitch about the amount of paint they're having to use touching up these scuffs. But yeah, there's our probe. We've got until the batteries run out to get the solar sails deployed. But since I designed the electrical system on this probe to be able to operate overnight, it's actually got plenty of reserve power. Yeah, let's needs a name. What's a good name? What's a good loyal name? I know. We'll name it after the lander of one of the Apollo missions. So there's Snoopy.